Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome. My name is Olivia Gudaniec. Today we're doing a highly requested video, how to take a good photo and how to pose in photos, which was highly anticipated. If you guys can hear me, you guys are already on it. And we are going to connect with Ashley momentarily. She is a self-taught photographer from Manitoba who moved to Toronto and now is in Montreal and has two studios, one in Montreal, one in Toronto. I shoot at her studios all the time, so she's fabulous. Here we go, let's connect. I'm gonna start off with a few scenarios for how to take a good photo, and you're just gonna lead us through whatever comes to mind, I guess. And number one, so you're out and about with your girlfriend, your boyfriend, friend, family member, and they're like, hey, can you take a photo of me? What immediately goes through your head, Ashley? What are some golden rules to follow? How do we navigate it instead of just being like, there you go, like everybody else?
Several things to think of. I think first is find a spot with great light, but also in combination of like find your background. Make sure your background is something that's kind of, I would veer more on the simple side so that you stand out, and frame the people properly. Like take your time. Don't just write off shoot people. Think about the whole frame. Like really think I don't know, like a painting maybe. I like to think of like the big picture, right? Like how does everything fit together? Is it balanced? Is the lighting good? And then you can take your picture.
I know like one thing I always keep in mind is if the sun's coming from behind me, then the photographer shouldn't be here, because then I will be a complete shadow, right?
Correct. If you're outdoors, the tips for outdoors are if it's sunny, you want the sun to be shining on you, or better, you go find a shadow. Or it's overcast,
right.
and it's not. Yeah, a balanced light is a lot easier to take a photo. Like it's gray outside right now, so there's no harsh lighting going on me. I'm near a window, whereas like a sun harsh light. Usually our phones are really great at adapting to light, but you kind of want to stay away from the harsh light, and you definitely don't want to shoot into the sun unless the sun is like really low on the horizon, and sunset then ends up being nicer.
What about like body parts? Because I've seen like so many photos where someone's like arm will be cut off like here. Is there like a rule for that? Like try to get everything or only get like sections?
I think you have to kind of trust your intuition on that. You think about a photo before you take it, like really absorb it instead of just like be clicking all the time, and say, really analyze like, okay, where's all the body parts going, I guess. Because some photos that look completely fine, like if you were to just have a little bit of your arm in it or not. But other times it could look really awkward. You definitely don't be afraid to give advice to whoever you're taking a photo of. If they have like one of their hands in their pockets and you're like, that kind of looks like they're missing a hand, to be like, can you take your hands out? Can you try something different? It's usually good to see like all the body parts, but then again, you also want to play around with poses. So taking time to really just evaluate every part of your photo before you take it.
You don't need some fancy DSLR mirrorless camera. If you have that, great. All you need is your smartphone, which you're watching on now. So that's it. And you're set. Okay, So example scenario number 2. We are traveling somewhere or even just walking by. We see a lovely monument, a waterfall. Do the same sort of rules apply to if we were taking it with a person in frame, or how can we get the best shot?
The best shot of just landscape, no people? You're saying? I think kind of it's really up to you. Again, you do want to find, like, look at it painterly. So from like a far distance, I think, and think, is it balanced? Is the thing that's in the subject really shining? Or do I want to stand further back and have it be more part of a bigger landscape? I think taking a minute to think about things beforehand always helps, because it helps you answer the question of, well, what is my goal of this photo? Am I capturing something that I want to stand out all alone, or is there a little detail in it, or am I capturing something super wide with lots of movement or like people walking by? If you have that moment to just kind of ask yourself those questions, then I think you can decide what to do after that.
Yeah, I think we're all just like go, 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 go. We don't even take the few extra seconds. And I think that's
Mm-hmm.
what really makes the difference, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now the next scenario. So we're at home, like we are right now. We're alone. We want to take a good selfie.
Mm-hmm.
How would I navigate that? Do I start with finding the just light? Is it okay if there are things in the background like I have right now, or is it better to have a neutral background? What is your thinking
Again,
there?
like it's something you want to think, what's your goal? Um, and
Look
maybe
pretty.
if you don't know what your goal, yeah, if it's as simple as that, maybe find like some. I always ask myself, what's my goal, and do I have inspo photos? So I'm not like, oh, where do I even start? I find a photo that's like, oh, I like how that girl's like sitting like this way, or she's like on her bed like this, or standing, she has this pose. Maybe I'll try some and like springboard off that idea. So I'm not just like taking stabs in the dark. Like, I wonder where I'm going to look good in my room today. And then you can also get an idea of like, oh, I, with just visual liking, what I like about that background, and do I want to replicate that? So maybe it's a very simple background. So I always tend to veer on the more simple side. So maybe you want to declutter an area, shoot there. Um, that's for your background, and same principle with lighting. Like, you want the light to be kind of pouring onto you and not like from behind you. And if it's bad lighting, like in your hallway where there's no windows, like don't take photos in there.
You
Find
can
find the
only do
light.
so much in
Yeah.
Photoshop or in editing. So make sure you'll see it like when you're looking at it. If it's really dark, it'll just be more work for you to fix later.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
So what are your favorite photography, photo editing apps, preferably ones that are free that we can look super profesh?
Yeah. I like Snapseed and I like Visco. Both of
And
those
both are
are,
free.
yep, they have premium features. I don't know if Snapseed has premium features, but Visco definitely does have premium features, but I use the free versions. Yeah.
And what's special about those apps that like you go to those?
I like Snapseed most for fine details and like healing, because sometimes I need to go in and like take out either like a spot or something, or there's like a light switch and I'm like, get rid of that. Um,
Yeah.
and you there's a whole bunch of other little settings in there that are the same as Visco, but I like to do it in Visco because there's usually presets and color toning that I like to do a little bit there. So I use the combination of them. And if it's really annoying and something I really can't fix, I will just take my phone photo, import it into Photoshop, and actually do some detailed like cloning, healing, painting around of things. But
The
those two
things
are
we
pretty
do
good.
for good photos, right?
Yeah.
So now switching to posing in pictures.
Mm-hmm.
You obviously do this as a full-time job and you go through so many models and regular people. Do you still get somebody that just comes in like and smiles and just like freezes? And how,
Sometimes.
what do you do? Are you thinking like, oh shoot, now I have to be the photographer and coach? Or are you just like, okay, let's do this. What's the mentality like?
It's never an oh shoot. It's always from the get-go. It's like, you can trust me, don't worry. Like, I'm very comfortable directing people. And I think uh, I always start with my clients on building mood boards before we shoot. So it gets them in the frame of like how they see themselves, and they can start to embody like their poses and how they want to look. And I think that's important for them, that they can trust that, or that they can become that. And then during the shoot, again, I use inspo. I'm not afraid to what I whip it up and I say, oh, I really like this. Let's try a pose that's similar in this area all the time. And have just having been doing it for so long, I get to know like what looks great with certain people, certain body types. But it's definitely like that inspo, and if you're taking pictures of yourself, then I would recommend both looking at inspo of like people who have similar body types than you and just kind of studying and saying, this looks, I like that photo, and ask, why do I like that photo? And if you like it because of their pose, maybe try out their pose and see if it works, and look at yourself in the mirror and be like, oh, that looks really nice. And you don't necessarily have to know why. You just have to like try it. You just have to see it and visually try it. So I would recommend using inspo and just keep trying things until you kind of know. And then you just have your go-tos. You're like, I know this looks good. I know, like,
Yeah.
you'll get to know it.
I usually find people like on Instagram that, because I'm petite, that are in my height range and body type, and then I kind of just, if I follow them and I see that they're doing something great, I'm like, okay, I save it, and then it's a photo for reference later, and that is so invaluable, because you're not going to be in the moment and be like, what am I doing? You can always have something to refer to. So that is so vital, guys. Don't feel like you need to invent the wheel. It's all been done.
No,
so just pull
exactly.
from inspo.
That's what professionals do. I have people ask me all the time about posing, and it's 100% mood board. I'm not making things up on the spot. Professionals go into their photo shoots with mood boards, posing boards, and they know exactly what to do to be effective and get the look that they want. So if the pros are doing it, like, we can do it.
We can do it. There's no shame, guys. It's just doing your homework. You're more researched. You're more prepared. No big deal. So what's the difference between, say, like a model or just like your average friend coming in for a shoot? Is it confidence that they portray? Like, what's the difference? I guess what I'm trying to say is, how can we come across as models?
It's 100% confidence. Yeah, I would say so. I've maybe shot like 3 professional models in my life. I usually shoot friends and just regular people. And yes, there's a confidence and there's a trust. And I think the trust in me to lead them is also super important, because once you let it go and you realize, like, this is just playtime and that I'm going to do my part to, like, I'm looking out for you. I'm not going to shoot you at a bad angle. That you can trust that. And yeah, confidence really is everything. You can sense people's emotion and feeling through a camera lens, even when you're taking like a selfie of yourself. So I think it's important to just throw your insecurities out the window. It's not that easy, but if your goal is to share like something that's your essence, I mean, tap into your essence, and what that is it is confidence and believing in yourself.
Rock it.
Yeah.
Because the photographer wants you to look good. You want to look good. So it's a win-win scenario, right?
Totally.
Okay. And hands are always an awkward thing in photos. Is there a rule about what to do with them?
There's lots of times when you're thinking about every part of your body. So sometimes that causes you to tense unnaturally, as if you weren't thinking about it. So it's always best to kind of almost not think about it and leave. If you're working with a photographer, I'll think about it for you. And there's ways I'll get you to relax. And it's usually not going and like trying to pose you in a rough way. I usually just say, I'll notice like a hand looking kind of like you're thinking about it. And I'll ask that whoever is posing to just take their hand and like shake it out, and then just put it, and then like and drop it, and then wherever it drops, it's usually great. So usually just like a little shake, and wherever it naturally wants to land is the best, because it's hard to think and be natural when you're doing something unnatural or that you haven't been doing a lot of. So usually just a good shake out does the trick.
And I also find, just because I've done a ton of photo shoots too, if you have some sort of prop, for instance, sunglasses, just like holding something, just
absolutely
the focus somewhere else other than like.
Yes, thank you for saying that. That's true. I'll be like, instead of the shake out, I'll be like, can you hold this magazine? Can you hold this coffee cup? And they're like, normal, right? Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, so let's go through like a few poses for men and then a few poses for women that you find just works good, and maybe I'll even do them if we can fit me into this frame.
This was a hard thing to think about because I don't know if I differentiate poses for men and poses for women. I know, like in my mind, I'm sure I am, but if I was to write it out on paper, um, my approach is still the same. Like I come from using my inspo and really studying that and saying, this looks great. It doesn't look too forced. I always go for poses that like feel very natural. Um, and natural usually means there's a bend places. So you're never fully like straight. There's like an arm is relaxed. Yeah. Like if something feels soft. So how to introduce that softness, both male and female, usually involves like hands are doing something different, or arms are doing, or like legs are crossed or legs are open. There's flow. And you'll notice it if you see my photos on my page. I'm like, all of them have bends. I'm not like a straight on type, very like I'm standing modeling off this clothing. I like there to be movement. So that's kind of my approach. I don't know what I would say. What is your thoughts when you think about that? Like good posing for men versus women?
I don't know if it was men versus women, but for me, I like just from dancing, if I had to pose, I always try to like get one leg in front a little bit just to add some sort of, again, dimension, or I would lean forward for some photos, lean back. I don't know really what's going to work because I don't know how it's all coming together, but that's when you kind of trust the photographer.
Yes.
Movement for me has helped me, like, you have no idea, just instead of being like,
yes,
I continue to move and hope the photographer snaps it at the right moment. Like I said, with the props, that always helps me as well.
Yes. So experimentation, keeping things moving, 100%. That's also something professional models do very well because they've been told that they need to do that. It's constant flow because you need to experiment. There's only so many, and that's what's natural. It's natural for our bodies to just flow and move. As soon as you start feeling rigid or stiff, it's like, I'm going to sense that. Everybody's going to sense that. So being soft is really nice. Think about what the end goal is. Like if my client it's usually people wanting photos for like their website and they're showing me pictures of editorial models out in the woods. I'm like, okay, this is not going to work for us because that image right there, the goal was to show fashion photography and be just very aesthetically beautiful. And your goal is that you want great photos of yourself like in a home setting working. So those aren't related. But maybe but why do you like that pose? Maybe they just like the pose. And I'm like, does the pose work? So it's coming up together with a mood board that's realistic to the setting that you're using and the outcome goal of the shoot, because every shoot has a different outcome. If it's purely creative, like editorial, then you can use editorial imagery as your inspo. But if your client is somebody who has a product that's in like the kitchen or something, you should find inspo that's of products being used in the kitchen, because it's just not going to align. Or if there is a specific pose that they like, but it's from like fashion photography, maybe be like, okay, we can take a hint from that. But you need to gather more inspo that's in the field that you need.
Absolutely. References are always good because it means you did your homework. What about insecurity? Say I'm really insecure about my stomach. Like, what would be, I guess, some feedback you would give? Would we just avoid it altogether?
Sometimes people tell me right off the bat that they're insecure about like this side of their face. And I'm like, okay, I'll try not to shoot that side of your face. But then at least I know why they're being like a little bit weird about it. And I'll try not to shoot like this side. If I want to get them looking out this way, or like to the side, I'll make sure they're looking out this way to the side. Again, like those are things that are personal, that you're insecure about, but probably the rest of the world is never even going to notice. Um, there's different ways to kind of not, usually it's a body part, and usually we're not shooting close-ups of your body parts. So if it's, I don't know what a, sometimes it's people, I haven't really had very many people be like, oh, I really don't want you to usually it's like, my legs are hairy, don't shoot my leg, like don't get, and I'm like, I don't shoot close-ups of your legs, don't worry. Or like, this line is like really bothering me. I'm like, my camera is not a microscope, like it won't,
Exactly.
don't worry about it. I'll make it look, or like, don't let it distract from the process of creating and feeling at ease, because the nervousness that's going to creep up from your insecurities, if that's radiating through your entire body, that's what's going to come out in your image. So you kind of just want to never mind about that and just have this overall sense of trust and faith that like you're here, you're at that shoot for a reason, and there's a greater purpose to, you know, taking these photos, and that it's not about the insecurities. I know it's easier said than done, but that's kind of my take on it. You're never going to highlight in on an insecurity spot anyways. And it's usually like dressing appropriately, like you can hide your insecurities that way, I guess.
Yeah, 100%. And if you booked a shoot, you've probably paid for it. So just bring out as much as you can of your personality and you, and make it fun, because in the end, if you're like sulking about it, it's going to feel a lot more worse after that session's done. So you just do the best you can, and then next time you'll improve.
Yeah,
it's
totally.
a process. So how can we support you, Ashley, before I let you go, throughout this time, for photographers who work with people closely and you're not able to right now?
Honestly, I don't even know. I am offering gift cards that can be used at a later time. I'm considering that a donation, just because of how CERB is working right now, a donation that can be used towards something in the future. And I think it's just important for everybody to I don't know, still dream about the future, and still maybe plan to have that shoot that you've always wanted to have, and make connections, do some research, like do your mood boards. You can still reach out to liking, commenting. That's another great way to still support people, even though we're not fully out there. We're being seen or making recommendations. Just general like sharing of things is a great way to support people who aren't able to run at their full capacity right now. So I would say that.
Yeah, and Ashley is not only a photographer, but she has 2 creative studios. So if you are looking for some really nice spaces, she's got one in Toronto and one in Montreal. I'll make sure I put all the links down below when I replay and post this replay, so we can check you out and support you, because we are in this together one way or another. So
yeah,
have a wonderful, fantastic day. Stay smiling, and if you have any questions about photography, posing, reach out to us, tag us.
Yeah, absolutely.
And let's support one another.
I'm down. Thanks, Olivia.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks for sticking to the end. I will see you same place, same time next week, right? Don't forget.